Hello, welcome back. Here is another discussion of a student-produced essay. This essay will probably receive a 4.5 or 5, giving the student a total of 10 to 11 points by 2 independent readers. The main problem I have with this essay is the first paragraph. I would like to see a forceful, concise, powerfully written introduction that clearly states the student's position. My recommendation would be to rework the first paragraph, but before that we should read the paragraph. The prompt was, should people be more willing to excuse the errors and shortcomings of others? All human beings are prone to making mistakes. These mistakes, no matter how small, will have some kind of consequence. People should not be willing to excuse the errors or shortcomings of other people, as their errors and shortcomings can have potentially disastrous effects. Adam Lanza's mental problems and American prohibition demonstrate the need to punish such errors and shortcomings. This is great. There's nothing wrong with this introduction. But I'm wondering, as a recommendation, perhaps we should be a little bit more concise and more powerful. And one suggestion could be, if behavioral problems that arise from emotional instability is overlooked, we risk being victims of ensuing criminal behavior. It is true that all human beings are prone to making mistakes, but we are talking about errors that are excused. Even a small error can lead to potentially disastrous effect. It's basically saying the same thing. It's more powerful, concise, and more to the point. And then you could continue on and talk about Adam Lanza's mental problems here. So I would suggest replacing the first few sentences with something which is a little bit more powerful, and perhaps you will get a 5 for insightful development of an argument. Now let's move on to the second paragraph. For example, Adam Lanza's, I'm not sure whether the for example is even necessary. Adam Lanza's emotional instability was untreated, leading to a violent behavior. Lanza suffered from a personality disorder. I feel like I need to know what kind of personality disorder. Some kind of a detail. Maybe at what age. But his acquaintances largely disregarded the shortcomings. What was his shortcomings here? Was he naughty in the playground? Some detail. And not in the sense of saying, for example, his playground behavior was unacceptable, but the friends forgave him. But you kind of have to show, not tell. You might want to say his acquaintances largely disregarded his petty stealing, or something like that, praising him as a good student. Because Lanza never experienced any sort of therapy, he never received, he became a sociopath. His disorder ignored by the public resulted in the murder of many children at Sandy Hook Elementary School. You might want to say this, not the disorder, but stay on task. It is excusing. Should people be more willing to excuse the errors of the shortcomings? It is the people excusing him for his shortcoming that led him not to receive any kind of therapy. Adam Lanza's condition was never treated, and I see that you're explaining this because people were willing to excuse his shortcomings, but his disorder left unchecked led to the murder of innocent people. Okay, so the rest seems okay with these minor corrections. I do feel like a little adjective here would, and a little bit of a detail here might make it a little bit more interesting. Reducing the abstract noun. You are in the first paragraph. You're supposed to develop your argument. So try and use a little bit less of abstract nouns and some specific examples. Remember the show, not tell type of writing. Now for the next paragraph. The Prohibition era in American history also shows the effects of human shortcomings. In 1919, the 18th Amendment was passed banning the sale of alcohol in the United States. But although alcohol was illegal, many citizens, bound by their addictions, continued to purchase it through unlawful means. These addicts, however, were not reported, since others excused their addictions as mere shortcomings and saw no harm in purchasing alcohol. For this reason, the police became lax in enforcing prohibition, leading to the growth of black market and, even worse, the rise of criminal bosses such as Al Capone. I have a problem with this sentence. It's very long and very wordy. I think it could be said in a more concise way. First of all, you're assuming that the reader knows who Al Capone is. So some kind of a show not tell over here. Show the crime as a result of him drinking alcohol, such as Al Capone murdered only under the influence of alcohol. Or you can say Al Capone, the famous serial killer in the United States, murdered only under the influence of alcohol. So the reader, without telling a whole lot, the reader will read your description of Al Capone and will know what you're talking about. And this sentence definitely needs to be tightened. You could say something like, there was little police enforcement, which led to the growth of black market and criminals. You said it nice and short. So let me see if I can write this here. You can say, there was little police enforcement. Instead of, for this reason, the police became lax in enforcing prohibition, leading to the growth of the black market and, even worse, the rise of, I'm not sure whether even worse is necessary, perhaps leading to the growth of black market and the rise of criminal bosses. Period. Al Capone was one such boss. And then you can say a little bit more about Al Capone, murdering only under the influence of alcohol. The only comment I have about the conclusion would be perhaps to play the devil's advocate a little bit to show that you have considered the opposing argument and you're well informed when you wrote this and when you took this stance. Let's go ahead and read this. No error or shortcoming should be acknowledged by the others. I'm not sure whether you mean acknowledged or tolerated here. So student may be perhaps tolerated or forgiven by others, as the Sandy Hook massacre and the rise of the criminal during Prohibition suggest excusing errors and shortcomings of others can lead to disaster. Instead of shunning these faults, perhaps forgiving these faults. And again, I'd like to know what the student means by what he means by these. It could mean anything to anybody, so perhaps a little bit of a detail here. Society would work in order to prevent these errors from happening again. What kind of detail here? Are you talking about murder? Are you talking about theft from happening, and to help the person overcome his or her shortcomings? Okay, so this was my comment on this particular essay, going back to the first page again. The title was, Should People Be More Willing to Excuse the Errors and Shortcomings of Others? So more powerful, concise, forceful writing, show not tell. For the most part, I think my comment was show not tell, which is why I would give a 4.5 for this essay. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you again. Goodbye.